and the system of Cameroon have made education useless. It is a system where people go to school just to pass exams and have certificates. And now, with the corrupt nature of the colonial administration, it is actually more easier for people to print their own certificates than to go and suffer in school, pay school fees, and learn to attain a certificate. So they are not after knowledge because it's a colonial system that is meant to exploit Africans. So for these years, education have become useless. Our people who have gone to university have come out to drive Bensikin. They have no jobs. Ambazonians have struggled even within the colonial state to fight for her own education managed by her own professionals that will focus on educating our people and giving them a competitive educational level of attainment, of achievement. That is what brought this struggle to the forefront of the population and the mainstream of Ambazonia. We saw Digntasang Wilfred, who was an elected member by the Parents Teachers Association and the teachers, who have declared a boycott of schools because we have now liberated 80% of our country and we control actively 30% of those liberated space, and the remaining 70% of those liberated space still have pockets of Cameroon military presence, that they have the Cameroon barracks. But we have eliminated Cameroon administrators in these areas. So these areas, we have made the case to the international community that Cameroon, even on a side negotiation while the war goes on, should temporarily allow our own Ambazonian communities to open their schools. That will be apolitical. Let our religious authorities, let our private individuals open neutral school where our students could be taught under Ambazonians guidelines, because we are the only ones who can administer that areas, because Cameroon cannot put its administrators in those areas. This is reasonable. The president of the governing council have put out statement to this effect. The Ambazonian Education Board of the Ambazonian Governing Council that have taken leadership of this issue have also put out statement to this effect. This is what we have been pushing for. For the past 3 years, we have been ashamed to see our own children carrying their things to go into neighboring Cameroon to educate themselves. It has been an embarrassment. It has even undercut our case that Cameroon is committing genocide, which they are in Ambazonia. Cameroon enablers and collaborators such as Agbobala have made the case that because Ambazonians are going into La Republique to study, we cannot be claiming that this is a genocide. Finally, that his empty argument that have no bearings at all have been put to waste, as Ambazonians are now reaping the fruit of our hard labor in building community schools. We have had a reverse of Ambazonian. Instead of moving into La Republique during school reopening in September, are now returning from La Republique to attend community schools in Ambazonia. This is a big victory. Cameroon government, in her effort to force our schools and community schools and religious schools and private schools to open under their authority and under their directive, have failed. The Cameroon government have tried for the past 3 years to push the narrative within the corridors of diplomacy that the Ambazonian liberation movement is a one that has banned education as a whole, and which is a crime against humanity to ban education, even during wartime. That was a lie, because for these past 3 years, we did not blanketly ban education. We banned Cameroon government schools, and we have taken the responsibility to provide an alternative for our people, opening community school and authorizing the creation of community school by individuals of the private sector. Cameroon finally have been defeated because that their narrative have crashed. The world can clearly see by Cameroon banning 90% of schools in writing with a presidential degree in Boyo, which is what they have been doing across Ambazonia, that indeed it is not Ambazonia that do not want to educate our children. It is Cameroon that is fighting against Ambazonian education. Because even those schools have official registration documents with the Cameroon state, but because they are opening up under Ambazonian guidelines, Cameroon sees it as a defeat and they are trying to destroy that education. In Bamenda, we have banned students from using uniforms and banned Cameroon government schools. The only two Cameroon government schools that the Cameroon government, under heavily guarded situations, could open, the students still could not bring in the uniform in accordance with the Cameroon directive. As you can see from the publication, from the visit of one of those schools, you can see it is highly militarized. So you can clearly see that the Cameroon government school that was visited by the Lele Afrique, the Colonial terrorists in chief, all of the students there are not putting on Cameroon government uniforms as directed by the state of Cameroon. This is clear demonstration of defeat. The Cameroon government insists on giving our children flags, which they refused, and it was not accepted according to their will. From the newspaper publication by Meme Mefo, you can see that the parents of the students, they protested their children from being used by Cameroon for propaganda because they don't want Cameroon flag. According to publication by newspapers, it also states that even the teachers in those schools rejected and fought with Cameroon gendarmes who were fighting to hoist Cameroon flag in those Cameroon government schools that have Cameroon base. This is to show you that our population have rejected Cameroon. And it is very clear that during this period when the United Nations General Assembly will be taking place, we know that officially Ambazonia does not feature on the official agenda of the General Assembly, but we know that our issue will be tackled in the forums that will be taking place on the sideline. And we have done very well to provide information and provide material for our international partners and sympathizers to make sure that the case for Ambazonia is not left out, but it is presented in a meaningful way that can make the world to understand our plight. So Ambazonia, we have a big opportunity to demonstrate to the world that Ambazonia wants Ambazonian education. We don't just want anything to do with Cameroon. We have banned Cameroon education. As we fight to establish these facts internationally, as we have done for the past year, as we gear up to celebrate our Independence Day that is coming on the 1st of October, to showcase to the world our students, our nationalism and expression of our nationalism as it will be demonstrated on ground zero. Some Ambazonians have fallen prey to Cameroon intelligence trick that they are using false flag to sabotage our action. Atangi Paul have instigated the calling of a lockdown that is not justified naturally by Ambazonians fighters or the factions that are calling for this lockdown. As usual, terrorism tactics, crimes against our people have been committed by this group of individuals who are running racketeers and cartels in the name of Ambazonia. They don't represent Ambazonia mainstream, and they have been rejected by Ambazonia because they are definitely under the influence of La République du Cameroon. Their activity on the ground proves that they are working not for the people, but they are working for political interests that have been exploited by Atangi Paul and their network of intelligence that misrepresent themselves as sponsors of Ambazonia self-defense. I'm going to take you now to ground zero and show you what is going on to update you with the pictures and videos in Ambazonia. But first, I want to show you in Bamenda. Bamenda is the flagship of Ambazonia. Bamenda is the capital of our resistance. Bamenda have kept the resistance alive and inspired the whole of Ambazonia, Boya, Victoria. And more remarkably, I want to show you the images that came in from Victoria. The people of Victoria, on Monday, the 5th of this month, stayed at home to observe the ghost town in a very significant manner. And we want to congratulate the people of Victoria that have shown their political consciousness against Cameroon manipulation, that have seek to define Ambazonia issue as something that is limited to one area and not another. This is a clear demonstration that despite Victoria hosting the biggest military base of the enemy, the people stand to as one people all over Ambazonian territory to express our nationalism and our desire for complete decolonization of our territory. So now I want to show you, before we go to the bad stuff, let me bring you the good news that following our instructions, our people in the capital city of Bamenda, which is an example of Ambazonian Governing Council leadership. As we have told you before, the Ambazonian Defense Forces are in charge and are in control in Bamenda, the capital of our resistance. Bamenda alone have registered 70% of the fighting for our liberation last year, according to international security experts who pick up activities of fighting across the globe. So in Bamenda, more than half of the fight against Cameroon takes place in Bamenda under our leadership and under our forces. The discipline of our forces, their understanding of the politics of the day, and the following of our chain of command that have told all of them to stay in their barracks have demonstrated that indeed it is the ADF, the Bamenda Brigade, that rules Bamenda for Ambazonia. The Ambazonian Governing Council rules Bamenda. That's why, despite the noise around Bamenda, the calling of a counterproductive and unjustified lockdown, Bamenda remained open, our community schools remained open, and our people went out for business. Even the Cameroon state that deployed a tank to intimidate our people like they have done before, that they used to use these tactics to enforce counterproductive lockdown as a means to fighting against Ambazonian independence. It did not work. Our people braved the odds, followed our instructions and guidelines, and went out to carry out their day-to-day activities. So this is Bamenda on the 7th, day 2 of school opening of our community school. These are video footages from Chemist Roundabout. You can see even soya people are opening up. This type of businesses, you see, buy and sell, and this small scale business are really indicative that the people of Bamenda, they are following our guidelines to open their doors and not to accept any unnecessary and unjustified lockdown in our town. Excessive use of lockdown is counterproductive. You can see hospital roundabout. I'm going to give you a tour of the town. Even soya places are open, which shows that the lockdown have been rejected in Bamenda. The people have rejected it because we have told them to reject it. It is not justifiable. The people knows it is not justifiable, and they are going about their day-to-day life despite the threats. If you go downtown, in many places in Bamenda, I'll also take you to community schools to see how students have come to our community school. This is Agnes. It's a community school. You can see students, parents bringing their children to school, following our guidelines without uniform, walking them to our community school. It is safe because our soldiers have kept it safe. It is safe because they are doing the right thing under Ambazonian guidelines. Cameroon is the only loser here, and their agents. So this is in Sonak Street, in St. Agnes. You can see our parents bringing their children to school. Bamenda is open. Our capital of resistance is strong. We are in total control for Ambazonia. In other part, in main market in Bamenda, you can see our main market is open. They call us and consult and ask if they should open the door. I told them, yes, open the market. The governing council have authorized it. Our Bentikin people, they went out to do their shopping. Our people, they were able to shop, go about their life. We are not fighting to impose chaos on our people. We are fighting to liberate them in a sensible manner with the least possible cost, financially and psychologically, to our people. So everybody was out on the street, even vehicles. There was a remarkable return of people back from Douala and Yaoundé. So you have more buses that are coming in from Douala and Yaoundé that are full than buses that are leaving Bamenda. Last year, by this same time, buses that were leaving Bamenda, people had to pay 1 week before time before they could have space. But this time, the spaces are there. There are less people moving out of Bamenda, more people coming into Bamenda. It is the same across Ambazonia. More people are moving into Fundong. More people are moving into Ginicom. They are moving into Bui. They are moving into Fako, Meme. They are returning back in liberated area to work in accordance with Ambazonia guidelines. And Cameroon doesn't want this. Cameroon wants to sabotage it because they want our people to remain in Cameroon and be paying school fees, be empowering their economy as they have been doing for the past 3 years. So if you go down to you can go down to hospital roundabout there. As you see, soya, people are out there. Soya, when soya, they burn soya, then you say people are in for the long run. So today will be the same thing. As you can see, our people opening up, and we are not fighting to put chaos. Some failed activists who don't know their left to right, who cannot even tell the history of Ambazonia, who cannot even articulate or advocate for Ambazonia effectively, have given our people the impression over the past years that activism or war is noise. Say, hey, place near the hot, place near the hot. And our people are associating some type of regular life within Ambazonia control like there's no war or we are not winning. No. We are not fighting to put chaos. We are fighting to bring order. And our fight is targeted against Cameroon military and their officials. And that is how we have to win. That is the only sustainable way to fight a war. You cannot fight war by pushing people to make noise. No. You fight them to organize proper military operations that kicks out the enemy. So, while our people in Ambazonian Governing Council controlled areas were living the life and demonstrating to the world that we have defeated La Republique, the Ambazonians fighters who were members of the ARF, so-called members of the ARF, you know, my country people, there is a statement that one observer who is a veteran of Ambazonia have sent me a message. Let me read the observation he sent to me. He says, Capo Daniel, do not forget that well before the war, well before Ambazonian struggle started, there were thieves, armed robbers, all sorts of criminals in our society. This war have provided such criminals a convenient umbrella to hide under, called the ARF, and practice their trade. It is so easy, so convenient to pass for an Ambazonian fighter when indeed one is a hardcore criminal. Awareness, eye-opener, education, vigilance are the key. And this is very important. That is why the ADF and the Governing Council did not just launch a war of liberation, but we actually took time to go on ground zero. Not that we were from abroad. We were from ground zero, born in ground zero, bred in ground zero, went through colonization and torture. And we came out and we tried diplomacy and we learned. We went back to ground zero, recruited soldiers, trained them, and give them discipline and a code of conduct. Arm them and deploy them. And make sure we use these same soldiers to be the leadership that will recruit other soldiers and train them before we can give them endorsement. So the other IG groups who believe in using middlemen to pay soldiers to fight for them have fallen prey to have hardened criminals be elevated to project stupidity and be prone to Cameroon manipulation to be used against our own people. If it was not the job of the Governing Council in diplomacy as well as in communication to counter some criminal activities done by these so-called ARFs, Ambazonian struggle could have been finished. Only the kidnapping alone that was coming from Bafut in Bamenda, Foya in Bamenda, could have made this struggle to die, because the Cameroon government would have easily used our population to overpower the soldiers as they had tried and failed. The only reason Cameroon failed was because we stood our ground to caution these boys and fight against kidnapping for ransom, setting up an anti-kidnapping squad that guarantees our people that there is some order and there is hope in the forces. Without our activities, Ambazonian struggle would be dead. Today, the same hoodlums, the same criminals are turning guns against our innocent civilians to kill them. And they have the guts to accuse those who are opposing the lockdown for their criminal activity. And some idiot called Mark Barata, Ashu Kingsley, failed activists who cannot articulate ABC. They sit in their WhatsApp chat group with a bunch of active so-called activists who are unable to articulate anything Ambazonia or gain even a followership. They want to hide behind their backs. They put out statement that they are supporting a lockdown that is not justified. Well, before I bring you these images that are coming out from Ambazonia, I want to tell you something. We are Ambazonians. We are fighting for our country. We should never use it for political or partisanship. It is forbidden in the governing council for us to do that. Less than a month ago, our general on the ground, our forces on the ground, our commanders on the ground, having receiving our program for liberation in line with the policies of the governing council, came up with an operation that is titled Operation Sunrise, that was supposed to bring Ambazonians, Ambazonian fighters all across our territory, because we have been able, with our outreach for reconciliation, bring some environment where we can cooperate and move across territories. This Operation Sunshine was the reason why they declared 1 month lockdown. The Ambazonian Governing Council, we are not criticizing other people just because we want to be partisan, or it's because it is not us. No. When our generals, they declare 1 month lockdown and it was announced, the message was released, we came out, we tell our people that we are going to talk to them. They had a meeting, the Defense Department had a meeting with the Governing Council, and they said, show us, what do you want to do for 1 month? How? Justify this lockdown. And they said, we have an operation that is going to last for 1 week. And the Governing Council said, you cannot declare 1 month lockdown for a 1 week operation. And the operation, the Governing Council says that we are going to review this thing after the 1 month. And the decision finally came from the President of the Governing Council, that says that even the announcement itself is wrong, because people will be nervous. To stay for lockdown for 1 month will just make people to go crazy. And it was reversed. So we announced a 1 week lockdown for a military operation that is meant to show the world that Ambazonia is in charge. We were supposed to take over the entire Bamenda, set up roadblocks and mount them for 1 week with hundreds of, I cannot give you the specific number, almost thousands of soldiers. That would have shown the whole world that when Paul Biya is telling them that the war is over, the war is indeed real. That we are also capable of providing law and order and mounting checkpoints, because these are very important criteria before you want to attract recognition. So the lockdown that was declared by the Hague of Sea was justified. And there are proof that we were not just making propaganda. We lost 11 soldiers that had moved into our mother base across Ambazonia. 4 of them which have been named, which were coming from Mbui. We had soldiers that came from Dian, Meme, all over Ambazonia. Even our enemies, they testified. So we don't declare lockdown for political reasons or just to show power within Ambazonian context. We did it. It was justified lockdown. Even when that lockdown was disobeyed, our soldiers rough-handed people on the ground. And we had told them, you cannot kill a civilian because he disobeyed lockdown order. You must be proportional in your actions. There are actions you can take when people disobey order, civil order. Sometimes it may be necessary to use corporal punishment. It may be necessary sometimes to seize property and to destroy property. But you cannot use live bullet and kill another Ambazonian because they refuse a civil order. That will be a crime against our people, and internationally it can amount up to the crime of terrorism. You cannot commit terrorism against your own people. You cannot do to our people what La Republique is doing to them. Because even La Republique du Cameroon military cannot do what they are doing to their own citizens. So you cannot claim that you love our people and you are willing to use live bullet on them for refusing a civil authority or a civil order. Disproportionate use of force is illegal. It's a war crime. And we have educated our forces and we have campaigned along that line to educate Ambazonians that you can never use disproportionate use of force or beheading of civilians, cutting off the hands of civilians, like Eric Tato was preaching with his Gary process. That is why we rejected Gary process. There are certain things that we can tolerate or understand if it is done against blacklegs or what people will call spies who have actually enabled Cameroon military operation by physical participation in providing intelligence and collaborating with the Cameroon army. in the case of blacklegs, there are certain force that can be used that could be understandable or that can be justified. But you cannot use lethal or disproportionate force against civilians and then you claim you are fighting for them. You are not fighting for them. So the first video I want to show you that is coming out from these other groups, they should know that they don't control Ambazonia. They have their areas where they control and they dominate. Let them focus on those areas and lock those areas. The areas we focus will be functioning according to our directives. And when our people see that things are reasonable, even if they are not our directive, we will advise them and they will follow it. But we will not allow ourselves to follow stupidity just to please others. And these idiots, they want to even blame us for their crimes. No doubt, most of them are compromised and the people who support them are compromised. Tomorrow, they are the same people who are blaming Ambazonian resistance for Cameroon atrocity. They don't have any logic or principle that can help them to prosecute a war. These people are stupid and empty-headed, including Mark Barata and all those who call themselves the SCAF members. They are empty-headed. They are not competent. Empty-head, ngongong head. If you can blame Ambazonians who reject an unjustified lockdown for the acts of terrorism in a corner, for the act of terrorism in my 6 acts against Ambazonia, then why would you not be able to do the same logic with La Republic? That is why we say you are compromised. That is why they think that you are the same with Padilla Sanga and Kunyam Titus, who have advocated that our civilians should be killed, that Cameroon should use collective punishment against our general public and go after family members of fighters and activists and supporters of the struggle and advocate for self-defense and self-determination. They have prescribed that Cameroon government should kill them, use lethal force. Those are crimes against humanity. They have asked for extrajudicial killing and execution of soldiers on site and even civilians. So if you call yourself SCAF, you call yourself Mark Barata, you call yourself Ashu Kingsley, you call yourself Christina Obini, you call yourself Dr. Carson Anyangwe, you call yourself your IG member, you call yourself Chris Anu, you call yourself Marianta, even Ginny. I'm shocked, Ginny, who used to be my schoolmate in BHS. If you people, you can justify terrorism, justify that soldiers should open fire and kill people in a civilian vehicle, knowing very well that they are all civilian. 16 of them murdered in Boyakumba Road. How can you then, my phone is being struggling to her, how can you then claim that you are standing to fight to protect Ambazonians against Cameroon terrorism? You cannot be contradictory in your principle. If we are standing up that Cameroon is killing our innocent civilians because they were using peace plans, because in the eyes of the Cameroon troops, they were just resisting Cameroon rule. If that was wrong, really to you, you would not justify the same thing on Ambazonia. That means you are the same with La Republic. If there is no difference, then why are we struggling to fight to break out? For us, in the governing council and the people who are advocating for self-defense, self-determination for the governing council, is because we are truly aggrieved, we are truly wrong, and our sense of dignity and national pride dictates that when people are being attacked, especially by foreign force, unjustifiably using excessive force, then we have the right to defend ourselves.